When I was a kid, a friend bought me a copy of Pokemon Sapphire for the Game Boy Advance while he was on holiday in Greece. He'd spotted a handful of loose cartridges while wandering through a market and was overjoyed to discover he could buy one for both himself and his pal for a fraction of what a single copy would have cost him back home in the UK. Can you imagine how powerful he must have felt handing that cart over to me? He must have felt like a god. The issue, as you may have already guessed, is that this slightly drab-looking copy of Pokemon was a fake. The game itself worked perfectly fine, spare a sporadic issue that would wipe my save file completely, which was less annoying to 10-year-old Liam than it would be today, but its translation was mangled. NPC dialogue was 80% in Japanese and 20% in English, with the English portion consisting of broken sentences and, inexplicably, swear words. It was absolutely cursed, but also very alluring. I understood functionally how the game worked because I'd played previous entries, but all the finer details of this specific version were obfuscated by the bizarre translation. I spent countless hours simply trying to figure out what my goals were, clinging on to every English word for clues as to what to do next. Never mind battling pocket monsters. As far as I was concerned, the main challenge of Pokemon Sapphire was trying to work out what Nurse Joy was on about when she called me well, I can't repeat what she used to call me. It wasn't very nice. Tunic shares a lot of similarities with that cursed Greek Pokemon cart from my youth. Yes, that's right, I'm comparing the cute fox game by sole developer Andrew Shouldice to a dodgy version of Pokemon I played 20 years ago. Bear with me on this one. You see, much like that cart, Tunic is withholding. Purposefully so, in this instance, and significantly less rude. Everything from basic controls to important story beats are obscured by its use of an unintelligible language. Your challenge in Tunic is as much to decipher its item descriptions and signposts as it is to beat challenging bosses or to collect shiny MacGuffins. It's a game that confidently holds back more than I was expecting, resulting in a uniquely rewarding title that feels like a genuine adventure. Suffice to say, based on this one reason alone, I have fallen completely in love with Tunic. But there's so much more to this vibrant world than a fake language and a sword-wielding fox. After 10 hours with the game, here are 7 reasons why I think you're destined to fall in love with Tunic just like I have. Straight off the bat, I think it's important to clarify exactly what type of game Tunic actually is. Although it resembles early entries in Nintendo's The Legend of Zelda series with its isometric perspective and green-garbed hero, Tunic is a Souls-like through and through. Although some lessons have absolutely been learned at the school of Miyamoto, it becomes clear early on that Shouldice earned their master's degree at the University of Miyazaki. The rhythm of Tunic's combat feels identical to what's often found in a From Software game, albeit much leaner. Your tiny fox has a sword and a shield, as well as a smattering of other items unlocked as you progress. You can also dodge roll, which makes you invincible for a brief moment, but doing so drains your stamina meter. If you take damage, health can be restored by supping on one of a limited number of flasks. When you die, you lose a small amount of currency and are returned to the nearest shrine. Resting at a shrine refills your health and flasks, but respawns all enemies on the map. Tunic, as you might expect, considering the Souls comparison, is difficult. Way tougher than its Zelda-like appearance may imply. With no way to summon helpers or even cheese my way through encounters, I found myself stuck on a couple of bosses for up to an hour at a time. The game's first gauntlet, an ancient stone guardian that's way snappier than a lump of rocks should be, frustrated me so much that I literally went off to play Elden Ring for a bit of light respite instead. At least in Elden Ring, draining your stamina meter doesn't result in you taking more damage as it does here in Tunic. Often, it can feel like the game is actively punishing you for having the audacity to try and get out of the way. As is the case with anything inspired by From Software's back catalogue, you really do have to have the appetite for this sort of thing. If you like difficult games that challenge you in a way that feels fair, where mastering a small selection of mechanics is essential to victory, you'll find a lot to love in Tunic. If the thought of butting your head against a brick wall for an extended period of time fills you with dread, then maybe this isn't for you. Saying that, I wouldn't say it's that hard. It's easy to make the Souls comparison, especially so soon after the release of Elden Ring, but Tunic is a bit fairer, I think. And the thing is, not only does the thrill of overcoming a difficult encounter feel sensational, the challenge itself complements the game's core theme of overcoming seemingly impossible obstacles simply for the joy of the journey. I loved the uphill struggle of taking down bosses, and if it clicked for me, I have a feeling it may just click for you too. As I mentioned at the start of the video, my favourite thing about Tunic is how obtuse it all is. Awakening on a strange shore, you literally step into a world that is entirely unfamiliar. Not only are your goals unclear, all writing in the game, including signposts, item descriptions, and even the help text in your own inventory, is displayed in an ancient, untranslatable language. You are, from the very off, completely adrift. But, unlike my cursed copy of Pokemon, Tunic has devised an ingenious way of conveying information to the player that is genuinely unique and properly amazing. Scattered around the world are manual pages. Yes, you heard that right. The most important collectible in Tunic are pages from the game's own instruction booklet. These pages are packed full of gorgeous illustrations and cover everything from snippets about the game's story to what items actually do. Well, sort of. The majority of the text is still written in Tunic's strange language, but there is the odd English word here and there to help you understand some of the game's more complicated concepts. Most stuff is communicated via just the illustrations themselves though, with early pages visualizing actions and tips through images alone. Realizing one thing in particular that I won't spoil here literally made me gasp out loud. An entire system was available to me the whole time, obscured but completely accessible, and I just hadn't found it. I had the necessary components and the means to perform the action, and if I'd had the motivation or curiosity to experiment, I probably could have figured it out at any point. It was one of the best revelations I've ever experienced in a game, and Tunic features multiple moments like this as you piece together its instruction booklet slowly throughout your adventure. Each page contains a genuine revelation. This whole gimmick makes you feel like a kid playing a game that's maybe a little bit too complex for you, forcing you to scour through guidebooks or web pages for specific answers to your problems. Those answers are there, and the game does encourage you to play around with items in combat to figure out things for yourself, but it's still exciting to be subtly pushed in different directions in such a unique way. In many ways, the manual is the game, and you'll spend the majority of your time flicking through its pages to study maps, checklists, or to look for hints as to what to do next. It makes you realize how much you miss a good manual, one you'd intensely study on the bus ride home from your local game station. There's a specific joy to be found in devouring pages upon pages of details for a game you've yet to even experience, and it's something that Tunic encapsulates beautifully. As you'd expect from a game that keeps its cards so close to its chest, Tunic rewards curiosity more than most games. For instance, its isometric viewpoint is used to great effect, with dozens of pathways and shortcuts hidden in plain sight throughout its various areas. Again, I don't want to spoil anything specific in this video, but let's just say that poking around is very important. Tunic is a game where every waterfall has something behind it, which few games are these days. I actually can't count how many times I slipped behind a staircase or found a small patch of beach that led behind a cliff, only to follow a path that led to an area I thought I'd explored every inch of a few hours previously. Like I mentioned in the last point, the majority of things in Tunic are always visible. You just have to look hard enough to see them. When you find them on your own, unprompted, it feels like actual magic. In a similar vein, the way the world unravels is hugely satisfying. You're always unlocking new stuff in Tunic, specifically stuff that allows you to progress past previously inaccessible obstacles. It's here where Tunic's Zelda influences become especially obvious, with items such as the grapple hook letting you fling your furry friend around crumbling ruins to reach new areas. Everything just feels very well paced, and combined with the instruction booklet system, you find yourself seeing old areas with fresh eyes on a regular basis. The more hints you decipher, the more items you amass, and the more shortcuts you discover, the more your journey begins to feel like a proper adventure. It would be rude to get too far into this list without commenting on how gorgeous Tunic looks, but it's a testament to just how interesting Tunic is that I've waited this long before mentioning it at all. Now that we're here though, blimey, it looks proper nice, doesn't it? Tunic's world is just bursting with colour, its clean visuals providing a lovely treat for the eyes. It's hard to believe when wandering through the game's forests, dungeons and astral realms that this was all made by one person. There's so much attention to detail in every area, but I was especially fond of its dark caverns. Your little lamp can barely illuminate these vast stone corridors and underground halls, resulting in an effect that is super atmospheric. It's a remarkably good looking game. On a similar note, Tunic sounds lovely as well. Its soundtrack is an ethereal delight, synthy beats that echo and warp as you explore. You're alone in a land unrecognizable to both you the player and you the character, and the music reflects these feelings of trepidation, wonder, and excitement. I especially love when you pause the game to explore your manual pages. The soundtrack swaps to a crispy lo-fi version of the piece that's currently playing. Peeking behind the booklet reveals the game has become pixelated and blurry, as if it's being played on a mid-90s CRT. Indeed, screenshots of the game in the manual look like they were captured from the game being displayed on the hidden CRT and not the clean modern game you're actually playing. It implies, perhaps, that you're not playing the real game at all. Instead, maybe Tunic is an isometric Zelda-like from 30 years ago, and you, the player, are simply interpreting its blurry, pixelated sprites as gorgeous 3D models, the way many of us viewed our favourite games of that era as wide-eyed kids. The manual, the CRT, the almost mythic quality of the game despite it being brand new, it all feels like a remaster for something that never actually existed, or a memory of something beloved from a childhood that never was, a cartridge that should contain something familiar, but is actually something very different indeed. Anyway, taking a very sharp turn away from pondering a hypothetical meta-narrative, I love the fox, and I would die for it immediately. They look like they're made out of marshmallows, wobbling around and clumsily swinging their sword. Every time you dodge roll, it looks like they may never get back up, but they're very brave and keep on fighting despite that fact. Inspirational. We can all learn a lot from this lovely little fox. So there we have it. 7 reasons why I think you're bound to fall in love with the wonderful Tunic. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.